Can AIs do Sudoku? I did this series of experiments partially because I was bored, but partially to understand how AIs deal with highly constrained problems. And Sudoku is a good representation for highly constrained problems because as you proceed through the puzzle, you're into ever more of a highly constrained problem space. And so I gave two puzzles each, today's New York Times Easy Sudoku puzzle and New York Times Hard Sudoku puzzle, to each of three AIs: ChatGPT 5.2, uh, Claude Sonnet 4.6, and Gemini 3 Flash, and we'll see how they each did. His first puzzle is the New York Times Easy puzzle from today, and we're trying it with ChatGPT 5.2. And first thing, it represents the puzzle in a text machine readable form. It does make the curious decision to render the gaps as zeros, which I think may be problematic. But then it looks like it struggles a bit, and it partially struggles, I think, because it kind of tries to zoom to a completed solution rather than working methodically. But it keeps getting stuck on, I think this is a good solution, and then it notices an incongruity in a solution where it's probably moved past a inconsistency. And so it just kind of continues to get stuck on this, even to the point that it will start to kind of complain that the puzzle is actually unsolvable. And this is systematically a behavior that I've seen even in other puzzles that I'm not showing in this video. So sorry, ChatGPT, but that's a zero for this one. Next, we'll do ChatGPT 5.2 on New York Times Hard. And we see again, it does this behavior of transcribing the blanks into zeros and zooming right to the final solution and getting over constrained before it really, quote, realizes what happens. And then it gets kind of stuck in a cycle of backtracking and recriminations. So sorry, ChatGPT, Sudoku may not be your bag. Now, Claude Sonnet 4.6 on New York Times Easy, we present the puzzle, and it transcribes it. We see that it transcribes it with blanks, which might be a better representation than zeros. We also see that it kind of proceeds kind of more methodically, more step by step than ChatGPT was doing. And then we see that it kind of minorly gets stuck, and then it kind of backtracks successfully and completes the right answer to the puzzle. So that's a good second effort by Claude to complete the New York Times Easy puzzle. Now, Claude Sonnet 4.6 on New York Times Hard, we see that it transcribes again the grid. It also recognizes the difficulty of the puzzle straight away, which is probably helpful for successful puzzle solving. Unfortunately, though, in the process of working the puzzle, it just gets stuck and can't really proceed. There are just techniques for solving hard Sudoku puzzles that either involve highly constrained processes or hypothetical processes or parallel processes, and Claude Sonnet 4.6 just doesn't really have those techniques in its bag. So sorry, Claude, that Sudoku gold medal just may be out of reach for you. And then finally, Gemini 3 Flash on New York Times Easy. We see that it does a bit of work up front to kind of recognize the puzzle. It's also a little bit more conversational with the user at the beginning before it starts into the puzzle. It also kind of asks the user more about how to proceed on the task. Does it want a summary of how to solve Sudoku, or does it want to solve it directly? And so I do prompt it to go ahead and solve it. It does proceed step by step, maybe even more step by step than Claude, which is pretty impressive. And then at some point, it does seem to think that it knows the answer to the puzzle and kind of zooms ahead to the solution. And that's a promising start from the young model. Can't wait to see what it does on a New York Times Hard. So finally, Gemini 3 Flash on New York Times Hard. So it proceeds kind of methodically again, kind of assesses the difficulty of the puzzle up front again, and then transcribes the puzzle into machine readable form. One thing to note here is that it sums up at the beginning the strategies that it might avail itself of, and then it just kind of one-shots the answer, maybe because the chain of thought is too long to display or some such. It then does this look-back explanation for the puzzle and its solving technique, which I think is maybe a technique that is trained into Gemini to help give users confidence in the answers that Gemini comes up with when it's not showing a bunch of its step-by-step reasoning. So Gemini gets the gold medal. Congratulations, Gemini. If you like this kind of in-the-weeds technical AI content, like and follow. As always, it's Kyle Grove signing off.